Can you hear us, Commissioner?
Yep, hear you now.
Okay, great.
I can't hear anything again. It went dead.
That's because nobody's doing anything.
So this is the mime meeting?
This is, we're doing it all in sign. I'm just looking for my agenda, but I'll use this one. All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to the open session. We're going to close the executive session and open the regular meeting for the Port of Bellingham Board of Commissioners meeting, regular scheduled meeting for Tuesday, August 12th, 2025. Port of Bellingham, we'll start with roll call. Commissioner Bobby Briscoe.
Here.
Commissioner Michael Shepard.
Here.
And I am Commissioner Ken Bell. Thank you. All right, we're going to start this off with a advisory committee meetings, just so everybody's aware of what's going on around us. The Bellingham International Airport Advisory Committee is an in-person and Zoom meeting on August 14th, 2025 at 4 p.m. You can join by Zoom just by going to our website. Please again notice that it's August 14th at 4 p.m. The Marine Advisory Committee is in person only, and that is September 16th at 6 p.m. That's here in the Harbor Center building. And again, that's in person only. Now we'd like to go to public comment. Anybody is welcome to speak before this commission on any topic you desire. We'd like to have you limit your comments to 3 minutes if you can. And then we ask that the audience be respectful of everybody's opinion, that you may not like it, but we ask that you keep it to yourself because everybody's entitled to their opinion and we want them to be heard. And we also will make time for anybody who's online that wants to raise your hand. We will recognize you for a public comment as well. Do we have anybody signed up?
Yes, John Hutchings.
John Hutchings.
Yes, I am unmuted. Can you hear me, please?
We can.
Thank you, Commissioner Bell. My name is John Hutchings. I'm the Public Works Director at the City of Linden, and my comments today are simply to recognize the benefit of the Small Cities Grant Program that you all are going to vote on today, and that the City of Linden is up and appreciates the opportunity to match the Port's $25,000 with $25,000 of our own utility funds to do the pre-development work associated with the industrial lands here to the west of the city, or in the city to the west side of town. And that brings a lot of value, obviously, not just to the City of Linden, but of course to the community at large, Whatcom County as a whole. And we think that value is definitely a worthy cause for the port, and we appreciate the opportunity to participate in it.
Thank you for that. Anyone else wishing to speak before the commission? Dan?
Good evening, Commissioners. Dan Tucker, Whatcom Working Waterfront Coalition. I wanted to thank the Port a lot for your support of our Working Waterfront Foundation and the apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship program, and just give you a quick note that this Friday, our first cohort of pre-apprentices, there's about 15 of them, will be graduating. And right now they are enjoying the last week of their work shadow experience. And already, I think a couple of them have standing offers from the companies that they are job shadowing with. So just a real big shout out to your support of these programs, and thank you to the community and to all of you at the Port who worked with us to bring these programs here. Thank you.
Thank you. That's nice to hear. Anyone else wishing to comment? Seeing none? Hearing none? We'll move on to the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through F.
Commissioner Briscoe, do you want to make any comments?
No, I have none.
Commissioner Shepard?
Nope, I'm all right.
Well, I've kind of given Elliot a heads up on this one. I'm actually going to talk about, I'm not going to pull it, but I'm going to talk about the commercial lease with Yamamoto Properties. And one of the things I asked Elliot about this property was about the history of Yamamoto and where it went. And essentially, it's a 75-year lease. And I have a natural aversion to those longer leases anyway, just because it's very difficult to plan 10 years out, let alone 75 years out. But a little bit of the history on the Yamamoto was that they used us very effectively to grow their business, and then they outgrew us, and they moved their operations to property that was outside the port. And then the property that we're now looking at has been repurposed to some extent, very small extent, but the number of employees, which was at one point 160, is now to 25. And a large portion of the property is being sublet. So one of the things that I'm going to discuss with the executive and with legal is how do we work these leases, and I understand we are, so that when a company transitions or moves, that we get a look at it to talk about the impact of that on the ecosystem. One of the reasons that we give cheap leases is to spur economic development. And there have been a number of cases where the leases have either expired or come up for renewal, where there have been no other obligations beyond what the original obligation was. And it seems to me to be somewhat short-sighted to at least not look at how we go about this, so that when it does come back, if the intent is to just sublease the property, that's certainly something we can do as a port. We don't need to give a cheap lease rate just so somebody else can mark it up and lease it to someone else. So the real concern for me is as we go through some transitions, and I think we went through some of the same thing with the Colony Wharf lease. There wasn't enough capital improvement for some of us for the length of term. We're looking at 75-year leases. We did manage to get the industrial park at the airport to put in money along the way, so that every so often they had to upgrade their facilities, so there was a capital infusion. So I'm just looking at something like this, and I realize the opportunity is gone, so I'm not going to oppose this extension. It just shows that when you turn a 75-year lease out, there are ramifications down the road that need to be considered in the lease, and I'm not sure how that gets reflected in the lease itself. But my request is that when we look at these long-term leases, that we know as a commission what it means 50 years from now if they sell their business. Sound Beverage is another classic example. Sound Beverage has got a long-term lease. They're no longer doing that business. The place is empty. The only option for that is to sublease it. And we don't have a provision in there that says, you know, if you're just going to sublease it, let's turn it back. Let's make benefit of this building, or let's make benefit of this so that we're in the job creation mode. That doesn't mean we want to take your lease away from you. It just means that let's do the highest and best use for this property going forward, so it doesn't just become a storage area, or it doesn't become something that's not as productive down the road. This one just highlighted that once again, that from a leasing standpoint, I would love to see some structural changes that would talk about capital investment, or in the event of, we just assume that somebody's going to be there for 75 years when we put a 75-year lease. That appeared to be the case early on, but that hasn't been proven in practice. So no action item for me, just a recognition that 25 employees on the port, and they didn't even build their building next door to ours. I mean, Elliot pointed out, if you're going to grow your business and we just give you a cheap lease to grow your business, why aren't you using port property to build your expansion on, right? So there was that opportunity during that time frame, but that was back in 2007, long before any of us were even thinking about the Port Commission. So when that comes up, I'd like to make sure that we have built into our leases some provision that we get to take a look at how the building is going to be used in the event of, just as a downside. So that's all I have on that. And then for
So
clarification,
I have something now that you said that, Ken.
yeah.
Thanks for bringing that to my attention. I missed that. So who's on this property at the present time?
Well, they're currently on the property for a portion of their business. They're still doing some. But they started out at 40 employees. They peaked at 160 employees, which was the intent of the lease, correct? But currently now there's about 25, and it's primarily subtenants, moving and storage, Shade Concepts. But they do still do a little bit of their business in that location, but nothing to the extent that would justify a cheap lease. They're not growing that business in that building any longer. It's just basically what I view as an overflow, and then the rest of it is sublet.
And for clarification, it's not a lease extension in this consent agenda item. It's just a modification and retooling of the numbers for rent.
Yeah, correct. Elliot Smith, the real estate director here at the port. Yamato does have several subleases in this property. The port and commission have approved those in the past. This modification does two things. One of them goes quite a long way towards what you're talking about. The whole list of attached items in the motion are all about tightening the lease. This lease is 20 years old. Our legal team periodically goes through and tightens up those terms to modern standards. And as a renewal, or in this case, a repricing comes up, then we're able to add those conditions. And that's why you see 5 or 6 or 7 items here around insurance and indemnification and just, in essence, modernizing the lease at the first opportunity. This gets a repricing every 5 years to market rate. So our rates are calculated on a property appraisal, and then have a CPI adjustment and a 5-year to market adjustment. So yes, we want to make our properties affordable to industries. They might not always agree it's cheap, but it does have a market rate component to it. But yeah, are there any other questions? I'm not sure I captured Commissioner Briscoe's question.
No, I'm good, Elliot. It's, as Commissioner Bell says, it's not really the intention of, as it started out to be. So we're going to have to do some wording changes in our leases. And we're not doing long leases like that anyways, any longer. So that's all I have.
Commissioner, I also think this goes to a discussion that I think you and I had about the 1106 and the ability to approve subleases for the executive director and what the lengths of those are. So I think this is in that same conversation, likely.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through F.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd?
Also, yes.
Commissioner Bell is also a yes. Okay, let's move to item number 2 with a presentation. Actually, it's item number 1 presentation with Riley.
Good evening, Commissioners, members of the audience. Riley Wynn, Director of Human Resources. Tonight, I'd like to provide a brief update on our recruitment for our next Executive Director. I'm not looking for any official commission action. I'm just looking for a head nod to retain a recruiter moving forward. So over the past month, I've collected several proposals from both local and national executive recruiters, and these proposals are personal service contracts. Most of them fall between $30,000 and $35,000 for the complete service. So they're well under a $50,000 threshold that we have at the port for an extensive solicitation process. So they're kind of at our disposal for a decision. Of the proposals that I provided to the commission via email, I'm recommending that we retain CPS HR Consulting. They're a national recruiter, but they do specialize in public sector recruitment. And they've detailed a 16-week recruitment in their proposal that starts at stakeholder meetings to build a candidate profile all the way through to candidate negotiation. CPS HR has been successful in placing a majority of diverse candidates over the last 3 years, which would be in line with our core value to employ a diversified workforce. And they are right at market value with a $30,000 flat fee plus expenses and a 1-year service guarantee. That's pretty much my update. With the commission's okay, I can go ahead and move forward with retaining CPS HR Consulting. And then again, we would start the process of working with the commission, internal port leadership, and any other stakeholders that we've identified to build that candidate profile. So I'll turn it over to the commissioners if they have questions or discussion.
Commissioner Shepard?
That sounds in line with what, I was expecting. I think it's important that we have a robust stakeholder engagement process at the front end. So we're making sure to engage the community in this important decision. And then as we move forward, I'll be looking for those candidates to have an extensive vetting process, and then for us to have a public forum where each of those finalists are able to be interviewed and kind of vetted by the community as well. So that all seemed in line with the proposals that she provided. All of them actually provide that, so that seems pretty standard for this type of engagement. Yeah.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Well, it's the old saying, 6 1 half dozen the others. Shepard said that, they're all going to do the same thing. So if there's a particular preference by HR, I would assume we would go with that.
Is that the extent of your comments?
Yeah, I don't know. I got a lot of feedback or something there. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Are you having difficulty hearing us?
No, I'm hearing myself as I speak. It's reverberate. I don't know what it's doing. Makes it difficult.
That happens to me a lot in my head. Okay.
I'll put a finger in one ear.
With that being said, I share Commissioner Shepard's. First of all, it sounds cheap. I mean, for the amount of work that it's going to take to do the stakeholder engagement alone, it didn't sound like a whole lot of money. So my first impression is, I hope they can do it for that. But otherwise, I have no comment other than if you think they're the ones that we can move forward with, we should.
Great.
And I do want to have a little bit of input into who. I don't want to necessarily tell you who to have in the stakeholder, but I do want to have an input as to who we should. So I'd like to see the list of who the stakeholders might be and how broad a reach you're going to have and what that process looks like as we go out. Because I think that's incredibly important to have all of those stakeholders weigh in as we get the candidate profile. And then I really want to see what the end product looks like as it goes out to market.
Definitely. I think the commission's going to have ample opportunity to provide their preferences. I mean, ultimately, the decisions are up to the commission with this position, so I'll be deferring to all of you for those preferences throughout, plenty of opportunities along the way.
Riley, would you just sort of explain, once we get the recruiter on board, kind of what that timeline looks like, and then how the commissioners can expect to be contacted either by you or by the recruiter for their interviews and input?
Yeah, so from start to finish, this particular firm has outlined up to 16 weeks of a timeline, and that is all the way through candidate starting their position. But the first step would be to meet with the commissioners and talk about the posting, the advertisement itself. And my prediction would be that CPS HR defers to the commission on the stakeholder group. So I'm happy to draft a list internally and then provide that to the commission. But the first step would be a meeting with commission to make sure that your preferences are heard and the recruiter understands. My role in this process will be mostly a middle person, essentially. They're going to be running the recruitment, so I'll be making sure that they have good contact with all of you as the decision makers.
So just for that timeline, are we looking at trying to have this wrapped up by, say, the end of November? Is that kind of, I was just counting weeks on a map, on a calendar here.
Yeah, so I mean, if we were able to start meetings next week, that would be end of November. With recruiting, it can always be a little bit longer than you expect, and it depends on everyone's schedule. So if we are the ones that have to delay for scheduling purposes, it could extend into December or even later.
Okay.
And there's a fee associated with that if we do if we're the reason for the extension?
I don't think so. It's not based on timeline. It is a $30,000 flat fee. So the only addition to the $30,000 is travel expenses, either on part of the candidates if we're flying folks in, or representatives from CPS HR when they come on site for interviews.
Anything else, Commissioner Briscoe? Because I had one.
One question to Riley. I don't want to put you on the spot, but why are you leaning towards this particular firm?
Yeah, I think that you're right. They all provide a pretty standard package. There are two really distinct reasons that CPS HR stood out to me, maybe three. The first is they are a national firm. Some of the other firms we looked at were more local. So if we're wanting a national reach, then I think CPS HR is a good option. And the other reason is their diverse hires. They had the best proposal for ensuring that we are reaching a diverse audience. And like I mentioned, it's one of our core values that we're employing a diverse workforce. So that was kind of the tipping point. Some of the other proposals didn't mention reaching minority or women candidates at all. So that was distinct.
All right, thank you.
And I was going to save this portion of the program for other business, but I think maybe this is a good time to interject it. We've been talking about the executive director position and how it needed something more than just the executive director. And my thought has always been that we needed a second body at the executive director position, that we needed a chief operating officer maybe, as well as an executive director, because I think they're two very different skill sets. So I wanted to at least air that. And as we go about drafting what we're looking for in an executive director, understanding that running an organization, keeping the train on the tracks, keeping the train on time, keeping the lights on, keeping the passengers ticketed, is a very different skill set than what is required in a lot of cases for an executive director to be in the community, to have a vision that is 20 years down the road. And we asked, I know, for a number of years for a deputy. And I think if we're going to be drafting this executive director search that we have in the back of our minds, that there may be a second position there that would take on a different function and be more of an operational person, and let the executive director be the executive director and not necessarily all of the personnel. So I wanted to throw that out to the commission for discussion, and I just laid it there. So you can pick it up.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up. I think it's something we've talked about for a while. I think it does influence the type of job description we would be crafting because they are somewhat unique skill sets when you're looking for someone who has, community connections, visionary capacity, and, whatever babysitting the commission requires. And the that is somewhat different from some of the tactical operations that happens for either a deputy or ops focused position. And so I think it does influence the how we envision and the type of candidate we're looking for. So I think it's a good conversation for us to be having. I'm not sure how we kind of move to decision making on this. It might involve us each having kind of a one-on-one with Tiffany and Riley at an upcoming meeting to kind of think through that before we make any decisions.
Yeah, I think you would be sort of inputting those qualities you're looking for, that in the executive director, that they have a similar vision as you.
And I would contend that it is one we should have, probably in public. where the three of us get to talk about what qualities are we looking for in each one of those areas. I've come to the conclusion that I've got a top 3 values that I would like to see in both of those positions. So love to have that conversation as a commission before we got to the point where this solicitation got put on the ground, rather than just the one-on-ones. I think I'd like to have that conversation. I think it's our job because we only hire one position.
So some sort of work session or
Some
special
sort-
meeting.
Yeah. As we get the process lined out, then maybe at the tail end of that, let's have a discussion with the commission. Commissioner Briscoe, is there anything you want to add to the mix?
Yeah, we're not talking about one position anymore. We're talking about 2, and we're going to be hiring 2 because we're going to structure what we would like to see for an assistant executive director, if you want to call it that. That's what that position would be, as well as the director. So there's 2 people now that the commission will be hiring because it's going to be at least in my mind, it's going to be very hard to hire an executive director and then have them hire somebody to do what they want them to do instead of what we want them to do. So how are we going to work that?
Yeah, just to clarify, the commission is authorized to hire the executive director. Riley, correct me if I'm wrong, but would want to make sure that the executive director that they hire shares sort of a vision that you all have. But the commission wouldn't hire 2 positions. They have the authority to hire the executive director.
Yeah, Commissioner Briscoe, that's my understanding as well, is that we would like to see what duties we would like to see in that category, but not necessarily hire that. I think that would be the executive director's job to hire the deputy. But I think
That's what I was pointing out.
yeah, I think we've learned enough over the years that we know that it is probably a 2-person job at this level, and especially where we are in time. So determining what those attributes are that would go in each one of those boxes is one I think we should discuss.
If I may, one of the things that we can do in the recruitment preparation is guide it towards someone who has done either reorganizations or hiring. Obviously, that's something that an executive director, that experience will need to be there. Oftentimes, the question comes up, what's one of the first challenges or tasks you'll have me take on? And that's something that we can communicate with candidates is we're looking for a chief operating officer or a deputy director and be upfront with them about that. I think that would actually be wise in the recruitment to make sure that we're sharing some of the needs that commission has once we place an executive director.
I think from my standpoint, Commissioner Briscoe, it's more about when we go out for the executive director, what items should and should not be on the plate for that position that we are hiring. So if we can sort through what we think we want that executive director to do and hire to that, we'll be better served, and then talk to the executive, have the executive director weigh in on the other tasks that are involved.
You're talking about shaping the position description, essentially.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's more my intent. So, yeah, can we agree, the 3 of us, that we would sit down for that meeting when the process got started?
Yeah, I think it's a good conversation for us to have, and Tiffany and I have already kind of talked on this. I asked her for a director perspective on it, just from the director team, and it was pretty resoundingly affirmative that this was of interest to the director group as well, that people, our leadership team here sees the opportunity and need for increasing that staffing at the in the organization.
Thank you very much. Well done. All right, the Mortgage Model, Interim Executive Director Tiffany DeSimone.
I'm going to take off my interim executive director hat, put on my Marina's hat to talk about Mortgage Model again. I got about 10 slides, pretty quick. Just a reminder, reminding everyone what the Mortgage Model is. So here's Mortgage Model 101. Let me also thank Pam for putting together the presentation. Where is Pam? Oh, right here. Yep. So the mortgage model is adopted by Port Resolution. Marinas are a closed-loop system, meaning that revenues pay for our operating capital and financing costs plus our required reserves. And we review this every 4 years, so it's been 4 years since we've done it. We make some assumptions in our model. We're not going to get way down into the weeds of what the model looks like. It's a spreadsheet, which I should also thank Alan Birdsall for, because he really did create this along with Pam. So those assumptions include a 4% differential between Blaine and Squalicum Harbor. We still have that enacted. A boathouse premium for both harbors at 30%. Active commercial fishing rate, ACF, increase or no increase. We have 2 rates for those, under 80 and over 80 feet. And then the active commercial fishing rates are linked, this is so confusing, to the Squalicum recreational rate. So we have active commercial fishing rates and we have a recreational rate. The active commercial fishing rate is tied to the 26-foot rate. But we set the active commercial fishing rate, and then the delta between the model rate, which is the recreational rate, and the ACF rate is funded by economic development. Clear as mud, but I can come back to it if you have other questions. So no action required today, but gonna give you a timeline about how we're talking about this. We'd like to bring it first forward to the commission and then to the MAC for discussion and then kind of back to commission and then for approval. But here's the 2025 market study. You all have seen this probably 4 times in the last 4 years. Pam does a really good job and the marina staff about tracking where rates are with other marinas. We do a lot of talking at Marinas Committee with WPPA if there's a standardize. There just isn't. And so far, we really haven't been able to do so. What we all talk about when we get together in those meetings is the fact that infrastructure projects continue to cost a lot in this state. So the blue is our 2025 rates and where we would fall in the market, and the green is the 2026 rates if we were to continue in the same pattern that we have been doing for the last 4 years. Is that correct? Yeah. Questions on that? It just kind of gives you a visual where in previous years the commission has asked for us to sort of stay in the middle of the market, which becomes difficult when you're trying to do a large capital project.
Commissioner Bell, do you have anything to comment? I really view the Semiahmoo and the Port of Everett kind of as our contemporaries in this market. And Semiahmoo is a market rate, so they're getting what they can in this market. So as I look at it, rather than saying I want to be in the middle, I think I'd rather look at the marketplace that we're in.
A comparable.
Yeah, and say, you know, we can be where Semiahmoo is. They're getting it.
Yeah.
Right, and they're full. And the same with the Port of Everett.
So that's a really good point you bring up, which I was going, sorry to interrupt, but make a point that I think you could compare us to Port of Everett, Port of Anacortes, Port of Friday Harbor, if you're comparing us, just for awareness.
And Semiahmoo's right there, right?
Right.
So
Based on services provided and facilities offered. Sorry,
I would
more
rather
on
see us be in the market rate area rather than the middle of the pack as a standard.
Now, Semiahmoo doesn't count. That's a private marine. It's not a public marine. It's not a port marine. It's a private marine. So I don't know how we can be in the same realm.
My comment there is that they are typically market-based. So it's not that they're getting what the public demands at that. The supply and demand determines their rate structure, which is an indicator of market stability. So if they weren't getting full, they would lower their rate, as supply and demand does. So it's not that they're comparable to what we do as a port. It's just that they're an indicator of what the market will bear in this market. To somewhat that extent, so does Everett.
Don't forget the job creation created by the people in our marines.
Yeah. Difference being Port of Everett's also publicly owned, but
And a job creator.
yeah.
And Edmonds, I mean,
Yeah.
does Edmonds have drastically different services than we provide?
I don't believe so.
It's just closer proximity to Seattle. Yeah.
Do they have our waiting list?
Everybody, almost nearly everyone has a waiting list if they have enough depth in their harbor.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, for the kind of economic development question, we want a full harbor because that supports active marine trades businesses around the harbor. There's this kind of tension with wanting to have a rate that attracts boats that people are going to work on and they're going to employ people to service. And my concern when we see rates drop towards the bottom third is that we become an attractive place for boats that aren't being used and are collecting more life on the bottom of them than we have in the Marine Life Center, right? And so those are the ones we don't want to be a home for, in my opinion. I know that's maybe harsh for some of those owners that are cultivating marine life on the bottom of their boats in extensive quantity, but we want boats that are being used, being serviced, spending money in our harbor with our fantastic marine trades provisioners, and that I think somewhat has a balance with the cost that we're charging.
Okay. Hearing all this feedback for our discussion with the Marine Advisory Committee as well, we'll take the commission's thoughts back to them on that. And we'll be talking about it more, I'm guessing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, just remember that every dollar we take as mortgage is going to be a dollar that's probably going to disappear from the people will disappear from the people's pockets that work on the vessels and maintain them for those people. Because as you raise the rates, people are going to do less maintenance. You see it all the time. That's how you get the bottom growth stuff. People will do less maintenance on their vessels if you raise the rates so where they have to make a choice whether they can tie it up there or repair, or have somebody else repair it or do it themselves. So be careful where you want to go with rates.
Thanks, Commissioner. And I think that's kind of why we've tried to strike that middle balance, because access to folks who live locally here and work locally here, you know, according to wages and all the other expenses that go along with being a Whatcom County resident. So all things that we should definitely take into consideration, and we'll make sure that we talk about those all with the Marine Advisory Committee as well as the commission before we make any adjustments. But I hear that it's always kind of this philosophical discussion about access. So as a review of the active commercial fishing rates, ACF rates as we refer to them, we reviewed that model back in 2014, and those two rates, under 80 and over 80, were adjusted. You can see the dates there that they were adjusted by 2%. We have not adjusted those recently in the last 4 years when we did the last model review. Again, the delta of the difference between, because our recreational rate keeps going up and the ACF has stayed there, so then economic development makes up the delta. Does that make sense?
So right now, economic development is contributing close to 700,000. Is that what I'm reading?
Sorry. 244 is the support amount.
Okay, I see. 244.
The recreational is the 9.2 ACF rate is the 442. That's paid by the ACF customers, and then the support is 244,000.
I see.
And there is appetite in the Marina Advisory Committee, if there's appetite for the commission to discuss that. I did speak with a couple of the Marina Advisory Committees back in the spring, committee members in the spring, that they'd like to have a discussion about it, and we'll look around and see for sure what other marinas do.
Would you make sure we know when that Marine Advisory Committee meeting is?
Yeah, definitely.
Flag it so that I can come and listen.
Yes.
And just so I'm looking at, if we were to do it 2%, that's been a historic
Looks like it.
increase that we've used in the past. If we did that, 2% would go on 9 million.
2% would go on 442,000.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
That's the rec.
Yep.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out how much we would take a dent out of the support that economic development is providing
And,
with the
the-
2%. Not a lot.
Not a large number for the port, but
No.
potentially a large number for business owners.
Yeah.
If I could go to the next slide, it shows where we rank in the market for active commercial rates. Just more as a visual and for knowledge. You can see that the Marina Advisory Committee members that I spoke with recommended potentially going to a percentage of a rec rate. So then it moves with the rec rate, essentially. It would just be a matter of determining what that percentage is for us.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a terrible idea, but it's up for discussion. So currently, these are the staff recommendations for discussion topics during our review for the Mortgage model. I'd like to get a head nod from the commissioners that yes, there's an appetite, you'd like to hear a little bit more about these things, or no, you don't want to talk about it at all. And then also hear if there's anything else that comes to your mind that we should be discussing. So the 4 things we have are mortgage rate increase, which is what we just spoke about. Live aboard rates, we haven't addressed that in the last 4 years. We're one of the few marinas that doesn't have a live aboard fee. There are a host of marinas that, like I talked about at WPPA meetings, we talk about that are phasing out live aboards entirely. So we'd like to have that discussion again. Upland storage rate adjustment increase, and then the active commercial fishing, what we just spoke about. Is there anything that you all can think of, and it doesn't have to be today, but in our one-on-ones we can talk about if there's other rates you want to talk about. I also have this, which shows our upland storage rates. So that's web lockers and dry land storage, and we have not adjusted those since 1996.
Oh, that's been some time.
Yeah. So it's probably worth a discussion.
I see Andy in the room, and maybe you could just remind us of capacity at Blaine right now. I've kind of asked several times when we've discussed mortgage rates about the sunset for the 30% differential.
Based on the occupancy?
Based on, and I don't know when we make that decision, but I think I've never intended for that to be a forever decision. I thought it was intended to spur growth in occupancy in Blaine. Under my understanding, it's been fairly successful in accomplishing that, whether it's just market forces plus that, both. And I think it should sunset at some point, and I want to make sure that tenants are, if we do go down that direction, and I'm sure there are some other voices here that may have opinions on that, but that we are giving ample notice to our customers.
So we'll add that as a discussion point for these potential topics to discuss during the model review. Okay, so anticipated timeline for this. Commissioners, our rates change April 1st, so April 1st of 2026, so we kind of backed the calendar up. We're doing the commission direction for review today. We have allotted plenty of MAC meetings to have discussion. We know that there can be a lot of input on this topic and want to give the public plenty of time to come give their input or find you and give their input. And then if we need a work study to discuss any really inflammatory topics, we sure could. And then go back to MAC and then commission adopt a new model at the latest in February. If we got through all of these in a way that we felt like we could make a decision earlier, we certainly could do that. Any questions?
I have a couple.
Okay.
So back to page 7 of 11 here, the ACF with the green bars and the blue bar and the gold bar.
Yep.
So I see Fisherman's Terminal at the top of 1308, and I see Fisherman's Terminal about 5 lines down, 6 lines
2.
down for 922. And is that a footage different? Because it doesn't say.
It's a footage difference.
Okay, well, that needs to be put on our graphs so that we know what we're looking at because we're complying.
Good point.
The other, hang on a second. The other thing
The other thing I see there is, second, I got distracted. What's the gold bar mean?
That's over 80 feet, and the blue bar is under 80 feet for us.
That says that to the left, but that's what that means. Nothing else.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for pointing out. We'll fix the fisherman's terminal.
And then the Port of Everett is one price fits all.
Yes.
Okay. And Shilshole, I've been in there quite a few times. I've never noticed it to have hardly any commercial vessels, if any. So that's strictly, so it says active commercial fishermen's rate. Is that what they're telling you when you
Yes.
talk to them?
Yeah, that's what they're telling us, and maybe they don't have any there because their rates are high, too high.
Okay, well, that makes sense. I was just curious.
Sorry about the typo in that slide, too.
That's okay. All right,
Thanks, Commissioner.
I would point out there's a reason all our boat builders in Whatcom County are doing well. There's a reason our tenants are doing well in our waterfront, especially our working waterfront. It's because of our rates, gentlemen. Everybody has left Seattle and they're all coming to us, and they're spending a lot of money in Whatcom County refurbishing commercial vessels. If you don't believe me, just ask the tenants and ask around.
And it might be beneficial.
So-
Sorry, Commissioner.
So before we make decisions that we should be changing this or changing that, make sure there's not going to be a lot of fallout. And I will say about the 4% difference between Bellingham and Blaine, and I've pointed this out before. We don't have any services in Blaine. We don't have a West Marine. We don't have anything up there other than we've got a hardware store, True Value hardware store, and a Napa that's open sometime. If you want to work on your boat or repair a boat in Blaine or get anything, be it hydraulic fitting, be it whatever, you've got to drive to Bellingham and back. And it's $4 or $5 a gallon it's costing. That was one of the reasons that we had lowered or we had made a difference in the Blaine lorry. And we haven't replaced any of that stuff that's missing up there. So it costs more to keep your boat in Blaine than it does in Bellingham when you need to work on it and repair it. So just keep that in mind.
Thank you. It may be helpful for some way for us to, that's kind of why we showed the rec numbers and the ACF numbers, but it might be helpful for us to be able to show quantify marine trades as associated with the active commercial fishing fleet, just for additional information as data gathering. I bet Dan could help us with that. So we'll take all this feedback you just gave us today and take it forward to the MAC and then keep you all updated. If there are no other questions, I'm done. Okay, thanks.
Okay, the next presentation is the Civic Spark Fellowship Project, Port Natural Hazard Climate Resiliency and Energy Programs. Emma, Danica?
Yeah, Kurt Baumgarten, Port of Bellingham, Planning Supervisor, and I'm going to tee this up here, introduce two different presentations. Well, I'm going to introduce our fellows here, and then we'll have two different presentations. So Adrian will actually introduce the second part of it. So it's a little bit of a two-step. So we'll shift now to port planning and sustainability, and we have had for the last 11 months and a little less, we've had two fellows through a program called Civic Spark, which is an AmeriCorps program. And the first presentation is going to be related to a roadmap to resilience from natural hazards. And basically the Civic Spark AmeriCorps program is focused on community development and helping early career individuals get some practical experience with different local governments. And so we were fortunate enough to have not just one, but two fellows through that program. Emma's program was funded by our Washington Climate Corps network, so we were able to partner with the state on that for an added lift. let's see, Adrian's, isn't that funny? Real time. Adrian's asking me to point out that she's on Zoom, so I'm assuming she can hear us okay. And so, the first presentation is going to be on the Roadmap for Resilience for Natural Hazards and Climate Resilience. This work builds off of our climate action strategy and our natural hazards mitigation plan that we have with Whatcom County. And it supports the port's commitment to sustainable economic development by ensuring that we are resilient in the face of climate stressors and natural hazards. You'll hear more about that. And without further ado, I'll have Emma come on up.
Hello, my name is Emma Van Orso. I am the Port of Bellingham Civic Spark Planning Fellow. And today I would love to present my project, which was the Roadmap to a Natural Hazards and Climate Change Resilience Strategy for the port. So with this project, I want to note that although there are many different definitions of resilience, for the purpose of this one, we used the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA's definition of resilience, which is to prepare for threats and hazards, adapt to changing conditions, and withstand and recover rapidly from adverse disruptions. So the aim of this project was really to create a framework in helping the port address climate change and natural hazards, coordinate with local other jurisdictions while ensuring alignment with Whatcom County's planning requirements to reflect the port's commitment to climate adaptation and preparedness. So this really involved taking all of our current initiatives and resources and pulling them together in one place to highlight natural hazards and climate impacts. Also compiling recommendations to increase resilience and incorporating these measures into future capital projects. So in developing the roadmap, it basically consisted of 5 stages. The first was research, and then I went on to stakeholder engagement. I then developed the document as well as a complementary story map. I then went on to stakeholder alignment, and then the final document and story map was produced. The first stage in research included me getting up to speed on regulations driving climate action to incorporate relevant federal, state, county, and city policy guidance and align with the port's planning efforts and partner agencies. I then began research by reading my foundation documents, as I call them. This included the port's climate action strategy, the coastal vulnerability assessment, and the tsunami maritime response and mitigation strategy. From these documents, I identified any gaps that it seemed like we were needing to fill and went on to look at what other ports in the area were doing to build resilience. I then compiled case studies for the port to leverage to enhance resilience planning to go on and implement more informed adaptation initiatives. The next stage included stakeholder engagement. This included ongoing conversations and support from staff in planning, economic development, emergency management, and aviation. I then reached out to external stakeholders, including staff from Whatcom County, City of Bellingham, and both from Bellingham and Whatcom County's Division of Emergency Management. After these conversations, I was able to further explore climate and resilience work in this space, and it really gave me a solid understanding of local initiatives and many more great resources which I used to in making the structure of my roadmap. The next stage was development, and this involved developing a planned scope and then analyzing climate impacts and natural hazards and how they will impact port operations. This included coastal flooding, sea level rise, severe weather, wildfires and smoke, landslides and erosion, earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanoes, and liquefaction. I then created recommendations to provide guidance on increasing departmental resilience. And lastly, identified opportunities for additional synergies, collaboration, and funding opportunities to be implemented after the service term. Lastly, I wanted to make sure that all of the recommendations which I compiled were viable for each department to implement. So I reached out to various departments that my recommendations included to ensure that they were something that they saw viable. Some of the recommendations which I compiled fell under categories including restoring and developing waterfront areas and reinforcing infrastructure, strengthening relationship with regional partners, and enhancing emergency coordination, as well as increasing hazard education, communication, coordination, and risk awareness. So to give you an example of a couple of the recommendations I compiled after some conversations with staff at Bellingham International Airport, an example of a recommendation is to conduct seismic resilience assessments to evaluate how a Cascadia subduction zone earthquake could impact the airport's ability to function as a federal staging area. Another example included establishing procedures for safeguarding air intakes and preventing engine damage in the event of heavy ashfall. So the next steps are going to be to launch the story map, which I've created to kind of engage a more broader audience and our community, and let them have insight into the port resilience initiatives. The next would be to implement key recommendations laid out in this framework. And lastly, as this framework is intended to inform future consultants and stakeholders in developing a port-wide resilience strategy, hopefully they would be able to create this, take this framework and create a port-wide resilience strategy. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer, or you can contact me if you want any more information.
Commissioner Shepard.
Great, nice job. How do we get copies of the story map or the recommendations?
Yes, so the recommendations are a part of the report and roadmap. This will be released to all of port staff and anyone else interested, as well as the story map as a component to that.
Okay, and are you a student as well, or is this post undergrad work that you're doing here?
This is post-undergrad work. Civic Spark really caters towards early career individuals, so kind of a fellowship after you have graduated undergrad.
Okay. And how does this set you up for what you're going to do next? Any ideas?
It's going, just being able to have the opportunity to get up to speed on so many local regulations and climate action strategies and plans. It's going to set me up very well for my next step. I'm going to be working with King County.
Very good. Well, for us, this type of stuff is critical for us to be planning for. We, as a public agency, are responsible for stewardship of a large number of very low-lying assets that exist right at water level and in close proximity. And so these are just planning that we have to be doing for these vulnerable assets in going into the future. And so it's important work for us, and it's really a system-wide, organization-wide process for us to be prepared and take action so that we're not surprised by ridiculous costs in the future. I mean, there's only so much we can do for a subduction zone preparation, but for some of the other kind of more measurable increases in sea level rise, those are things that we can be planning for today. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Briscoe, any comments?
Yes, well prepared. Thank you for your efforts, and this will give us insight on where we're going in the future here. Thank you.
Thank you.
What was your big takeaway? What did you learn the most? What did you find the most complicated?
I think one of the main things was that it just kind of kept coming up that if we had a Cascadia subduction zone event, that this would cause a lot of other like secondary impacts, including liquefaction. And because all of our port property, most of it is built on fill, the complications with liquefaction will be very drastic. So that was probably the main concern.
And we all have your number in case that happens.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you
She'll be
very
helping
much.
King County. Congratulations.
Thank
Great
you.
presentation.
Thank you.
Is Adrian going to introduce?
Yes,
Okay.
Adrian's going to introduce me on Zoom. Hopefully, if Adrian's ready.
I am here.
Okay,
I am
great.
here. Hi, everyone. Sorry. I was sitting here waiting with my hand raised. And it doesn't look like I can turn my camera on, so sorry about that. So my name is Adrian Douglas Scott. I'm the Sustainability Program Manager for the Port of Bellingham. My apologies that I can't be there in person today.
Did we lose audio?
Uh-oh.
She's muted. Adrian, can you unmute yourself?
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry about that. I got moved to a panelist mid-sentence there, so now you can see me. So again, my name is Adrian. I'm the Sustainability Program Manager for the Port of Bellingham, and I'm sending apologies for not being able to be there in person today. But I did want to talk a little bit about this particular Civic Spark program that we've been fortunate to have for the last 10 months, actually plus 10 months plus. It's been really, really amazing to have Emma and Danica on board with us at the port. They've just brought such fantastic energy and really thrown themselves into these projects. So I just want to say how much I appreciate all of that. A couple of years ago, well, probably 4 or 5 years ago, I got a letter on my desk from the Department of Commerce talking about the Clean Buildings Act and what that might mean for one of our buildings. It's turned into a much larger project and program, of course, and I love a good acronym. We call this program the BUMP, which is the Building and Infrastructure Energy Management Program. And as part of the BUMP, that's actually a very cross-divisional team. So I'd like to recognize the fact that Brian McCracken, our head electrician, and Alec Strand out of engineering, Annika Björkman, in real estate, and myself have been, steering that to make sure that we are in compliance with this Clean Buildings Act. And Commissioners, you have approved a couple of the drivers for what the work is that we do with the BUMP. The Climate Action Strategy is one of those drivers, and the Commercial Strategic Energy Management Program with PSE is another one of those drivers. So there's 3 drivers there if you add in the state law. And that state law does require building performance to be at a certain level, and there's lots and lots and lots of ongoing reporting and O&M and lots of work there that it doesn't just get solved with 1 year of work. So we're very lucky to have Danica on board with us, helping all the teams out at the port. She's been fantastic at working with everyone. And we're lucky that she's going to continue after the Civic Spark Fellowship is finished. She's going to be continuing on with a different fellowship with us. So I'm going to stop talking now and send this over to Danica.
Thank you, Adrian. Let's see if we can get that presentation up. Okay, great. Hi, I'm Danica Holt. I'm the Civic Spark Energy Program Fellow, and I started here last July as an intern and then transitioned into the Civic Spark Fellowship when we learned that they had a 3/4 time opportunity, which went from January until the end of this month. And then starting the end of this month until next June, I'll be in the Climate Corps Fellowship, continuing my work here. Go next slide here. Okay, great. Here's those program drivers that Adrian was introducing. So the Ports BUMP program was established in 2021 as a response to the Clean Buildings Act once Adrian and the others realized the how large of a task it would be to come into compliance, as the port owns several large buildings over 20,000 square feet, which is what Commerce is touching here. But the Washington State Clean Buildings Performance Standard requires that building owners for large buildings keep their buildings in tuned up and report their energy usage, as well as establishing energy management programs and operations and maintenance programs that keep the buildings operating at the level that they should be, or at least keeping them alive as long as possible. And another one of those drivers is the Climate Action Strategy, which specifically outlines reducing tenant and operations emissions related to the buildings themselves and not just what's going on inside of them, as well as the Puget Sound Energy Commercial Strategic Energy Management Program, which provides low and no cost opportunities for energy savings and gives us incentives in return every year. Last year, we earned nearly $9,000 in incentives just from reducing our behavioral energy usage. That's like turning off the lights more and changing our like HVAC settings. So we don't really notice those changes, but we get big incentives from those. So here's a little introduction to the energy management planning requirements. So essentially, Commerce wants us to keep track of how much energy we're using, making sure that everybody who's using those buildings are aware of how to save energy, making sure that our staff knows how to maintain all of our equipment and keep a record of those changes, as well as having a full operations and maintenance program that is not just reactive, but keeps our planning farther out in the future so that we can really take advantage of these energy efficiency incentives that are out there, so we know what we have and what we can do in the future, and then how to receive those incentives. And then also, we have a requirement to report all of these things to Commerce on an annual basis. So this program is really about knowing what's going on in our buildings and planning for the future, because we know that these buildings will have to be in operation. So we're hoping we can do that as efficiently as possible. Here's a look at the Tier 1 building compliance roadmap. It essentially just outlines developing the operations and maintenance program, as well as benchmarking and implementing any energy efficiency measures that are required, and then submitting that to Commerce and having them assess our compliance. And if they're unhappy with us, then they'll fine us. But hopefully they will be lenient. But that shouldn't happen because we are on the road to compliance. So here's a little example of what benefits we're getting from this program. So here's the Bellingham Airport cumulative energy usage over the last 3 years. And as you can see, there's been a huge dip, at least in the last 3 months. And that comes from the 100 kilowatt solar array that was installed in November, and the full LED retrofit that was completed in June. So that solar array is producing 150,000 kilowatt hours of energy every year, and this lighting project will be saving us 436,000-ish kilowatt hours a year. And so those two measures translates to $83,000 in energy savings on an annual basis. But if you look at the cumulative energy usage here, you can see that between March and June, where both we're getting longer days and the lighting retrofit project was mostly taking place between March and June, you can see there's this huge dip. And essentially we've reduced our energy consumption at the airport 26% as compared to last June. So next steps for my project are to continue my work getting all of our compliance records together for our large buildings, applying for the Tier 2 early adopter incentives. The Department of Commerce has a pot of $150 million to grant towards these incentives, and we have a lot of buildings that could use these incentives to do HVAC retrofits or more lighting upgrades. So we'll be pursuing those. We're going to be finalizing the energy management plans and tracking the implementation, as well as reporting that to Commerce. And last step will be to expand our energy communication plan. Just because the background effort of this project has been a lot of data analysis and record keeping, but my plan is to keep engaging more people as I continue my fellowship. Thank you, and you can contact me here if you have any questions, but I'm happy to answer questions now.
Commissioner Shepard.
All right. thanks. Love seeing those numbers from BLI. It's exciting and just kind of reinforces that opportunity that exists with increasing the solar array that is out there. I think we did a really nice job for what I hope is phase 1, and there's certainly opportunity for semi-structured covered parking or other opportunities out there. So I think we'll keep looking at those, and hopefully you can help us keep tracking any of these incentive opportunities. I feel like it's always been harder to connect the dots on some of these incentive programs than I expected when I first came into office. I thought, hey, we're a government, we're a willing partner, we have big buildings, lots of roof space, help us make it pencil. And that part of making it pencil has been just more challenging than I anticipated. And it's not without good effort and staff power and partners and trying to do these things. So we'll continue building those out. We can see they have impact and lots of opportunity for the future. Thanks.
Thank you.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yeah, no, interesting, and thank you for the report. The public can see that we're making great strides in reducing our energy use. So that's important that they're made aware of that as well as us. So thank you.
What's the plan to bring that graph back when it's a full year's production? I'd like to see that purple line extended for, is that in your purview or is that going to go to the airport staff?
As in estimating what that
No,
would be,
just
or just
actuals.
Actuals? Yeah. I mean, part of the energy management plan for the airport is reporting energy use changes, as well as like tenant changes that would affect energy usage, and any changes that we made with like energy efficiency measures. And so we'll be updating this plan annually with the energy use, like cumulative energy usage, as well as like different projects that went on. But every 5 years, we'll have to submit that to Commerce. So we will be more aware of our large building energy usage.
Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing what the seasonal shifts would be and what a year-long graph would look like.
I do have that if you'd like to see that, but that would be after this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you want to track it and see what happens essentially.
Right now, you're at 25% or give or take, and on an annualized basis, is it going to be the same?
Yes, unless we change our, we're currently looking at recommissioning the building automation system to find smaller windows of like HVAC energy savings. And so we could be increasing that over time, as long as we get those programs going.
I've got a follow-up. We've kind of started tackling our own buildings first. Our things that we own is the easiest first step. What about providing these incentives or opportunities for our tenants? Buildings that tenants may own or may be occupied and owned by us. How do we have any opportunities to help these tenants who may want to put a solar panel array on their roof, may want to make HVAC investments or other things, but they don't necessarily have the same capital that we do?
Yeah, so the plan for that is to start with just like more stakeholder engagement of like what resources do tenants have now, what's in their lease that talks about tenant improvements, and like what kind of opportunities do tenants have for changing things in their like let's say rental spaces, because a lot of the times these larger projects are not allowed. Like if a tenant has like a 1-year lease, they can't like do a full HVAC retrofit. But the communication plan is to first examine what resources they have, what public incentives exist, like through PSE, et cetera, and then trying to be more of a like connection point between like the tenants and incentive programs that we know we're using. And then just like continuing to follow up and having a more robust like tenant engagement plan, having like, brochures with like behavioral energy changes and versus like, when do we need to have a conversation about changing your lease terms if you want to do something huge, or if you are having like other tenant improvement ideas. There's going to be a process in which tenants can ask those questions.
Good.
Really great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, I wanted to point out a thanks to Brian's team, Adrian, Kurt, who for a few years we've heard the commission up here talking about intern programs and all that's involved in implementing those and staff time. I really think Brian and his team found a really good solution to that in the fellowship program. So a shout out to that team for spearheading it and following it through and getting some really great candidates.
Ditto. All right, we're going to move on to action items. You're already there, Matt.
Yes.
Author.
Motion to authorize the interim executive director to execute a 3-year contract with Volair Aviation Incorporated for air service development services with 2 optional 12-month extensions.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Matt Rodriguez. I am the Director of Aviation at the Bellingham International Airport. As soon as we get this screen figured out. Here we go. Okay, so today I'm going to be discussing the potential agreement here with Volair, and I believe we do have Jack Penning on the Zoom call. Jack, are you there?
One moment.
I'm here if you can hear me.
Excellent. Hi, Jack.
Hey there, Matt.
So for the Air Service Development RFP, we advertised the request for proposals. This happened back in June 30th. We had it open for about 3 weeks, and we received 2 proposals back, one being Volair. The other one was ASM North America. Both of these organizations were evaluated, heavily weighed on the understanding portion of BLI's market and opportunities, as well as proven success with similar airports such as BLI, and then, of course, the experience with SCATSI grants, which is the Small Community Air Service Development Grant, and airline negotiations. So both companies were well qualified, and the airport had a selection committee, which included myself, Alex Young, and Tyler. And we evaluated both, and we all had scores leaning towards Volair. Most of it was because they have a good understanding of BLI's market and opportunities. In addition to this, they have pretty driven results here. They've had addition of 250 new routes. They've had multiple SCATSI grant awards, including those airports here in Washington. They support the airport with additional data, so proprietary leakage of origin studies tailored towards BLI, so seeing what kind of leakage is happening at our airport and who's going to Seattle. So yes, they were selected. So with Volair's scope of work, with the 3-year agreement and the 2 12-month extensions, what the airport and port will receive out of this contract and this agreement is full data market analysis. So we'll receive monthly data ongoing. With this data will include drive diversion and passenger leakage studies. We'll get 2 of those studies, which includes credit card data that Jack Penning himself and Volair will get for us. And then the point of origin passenger studies, 3 studies of those over the 3-year term. In addition to the contract here, the community education incentive fund development with 6 community visits. So that was discussed and how the airport can engage the community in order to develop a minimum annual or minimum revenue guarantee for the airport. So it'd be a community bank. So that's a plan that we put in place. We start engaging the community, the businesses, and see where those businesses are flying to and how can we help those businesses continue those flights. Meetings and conferences. So we'll engage with Jack on a monthly basis with virtual meetings and ongoing strategic collaboration. In addition to this includes conference and headquarter meetings. So when we start doing our tour here for these airline conferences, Jack and I, myself, and most likely Tyler himself included, we'll be attending these airline conferences, engaging airlines, sharing the information that we have on hand, and then do a follow-up of whatever data that the airlines are requesting of the airport, and then re-engage the airline either at their headquarters or Zoom calls, et cetera. This also includes the annual Allegiant Air Conference engagement, so 3 meetings within 3 years. And this also includes negotiation review of airline revenue guarantees and unlimited negotiations and advice and unlimited on-call consulting. So this agreement here that we have is much different than what we had in previous years, and we'll go over that. We'll show the 2025 agreement versus the, I believe it was 2022 agreement. So the benefits of the 2025, the retainer agreement, is that everything is just inclusive rather than a la carte. So the previous agreement we had in 2020 was more a la carte. So any service that we wanted from Volair, including conferences or engaging airlines at their headquarters, we would have to have a separate fee negotiated for that service. As well as our Small Community Air Service Development Grant. Volair has been writing our past several of these grants. That was also an additional cost, and again, that was negotiated through a separate contract. So with this 3-year cost here, it's $198,000 flat fee, so it comes out to about $5,500 per month. However, we get all these services so we can start being aggressive while engaging airlines and creating air service at the airport. So why air service matters so much for Whatcom County is several things. It serves the travel needs for the public, for both residents and businesses. Reduces leakage to other airports such as SeaTac and YVR up there in Vancouver. And it's going to drive local economic development and tourism. So during this process, and how Volair will support the air service for Whatcom County is that it will conduct a drive diversion and passenger leakage study to identify those market gaps. In addition to that, Jack will build data-driven cases for those underserved or unserved markets, which we have a lot of. The financial impact of an increased air service impacts everything financially in a positive way. So we can discuss here the FAA airport entitlements, passenger facility charges, and the aeronautical and non-aeronautical revenue that can be produced by just having one additional flight or one additional airline serving multiple flights and filling those gaps of those markets that are that we have passenger leakage going to Seattle or Vancouver. So the revenue generation benefits, so our AIP entitlements, so the more employments that we have is the more federal entitlements that the airport and port will receive on an annual basis. Right now with our employments, we're sitting right about 1.9 million per year. The FAA does have this very drawn out formula that when Congress appropriates the funding and the FAA has their formula, and that's based off of your airport's employments and cargo tonnage. So the more activity we see at the airport means the more federal funding that the port will receive for projects and development. In addition, the passenger facility charges are $4.50. That has not changed since the year of 2020. I know there's been a lot of lobbying from airports to get the PFCs increased beyond $4.50. However, the airlines like to lobby against that because they don't want to increase their tickets as well. However, more employments also means more passenger facility charges that the airport will collect from the airlines. Other revenue streams, our concessions, fuel flowage fees, remain overnights. Every aeronautical activity and non-aeronautical activity that generates revenue that's being driven from commercial employments increases. And we saw this when Southwest departed BLI. We didn't lose 40% of our overall revenue streams, but we did lose 40% of our employments, but that impacts different revenue streams differently. So with Volair's contract and their agreement here that we're proposing today, we're going to be able to grab that data. We can see what would benefit the airport, what markets are underserved or not served whatsoever, and then we can start making those cases and engaging those airlines to bring that air service here to BLI. This also supports our strategic capital development. So when we say engaged in this agreement, this 3-year agreement, if we exercise the last 2 years and we start making some good progress towards air service, we work towards working with the community, building a minimum revenue guarantee. That is going to help us, as in the port, with our strategy regarding capital development at the airport. So when we talk about reinvesting back into BLI's infrastructure, the revenue growth driven by the air service is going to fund terminal upgrades, airfield safety enhancements, sustainability projects such as solar, unleaded fuel tanks, airfield LED upgrades, and other electrification projects. In addition, it will support the airport master plan implementation and general aviation development. So we start looking at the airport master plan. A lot of that planning and developing is driven by our activity levels, which our main source of income is driven by those commercial enplanements. So if we want to see other areas grow throughout the airport, we have to start with air service first. That's going to allow the port and airport to have additional funding to address those general aviation projects and other development projects that were identified during the previous study. And Volaire's role in this matter is going to, Jack will help us secure the Small Community Air Service Development Grant, which will then hence reduce risk on capital investment tied to new service. So when we talk about being awarded any type of dollar figure for a SCATC, the Small Community Air Service Development Grant, that can also be used as a minimum revenue guarantee for an airline serving a unserved market. Oh, didn't want to miss this one. It also builds business cases aligned with development priorities. So when we go to these conferences and we start engaging like Routes World 2026, or not Routes World, but Routes Americas 2026 in Brazil, we will be engaging with those same international carriers that Tyler and Jack were engaging at the last year's conference. We do have some interest for international flights where, we've had questions regarding if we can use the current CBP facility for the FIFA, and it's not practical, and CBP will never go for that. They're not staffed well enough for that, but this also builds that case if we start building the domestic side, and then we also seek funding and we're awarded funding for the design for the FIS, for the International Arrivals Building, and then we can, proceed for more funding for construction. That way we can start chasing down those international carriers and bring international service to the airport. So the value of the agreement, really quick here. So cost of the airport, like we said, it was $5,500 a month, comes out to $198,000 over 3 years. It's a market value of $238,450, which, Jack and his team gave us a generous discount of 17% off of his fees. And then this includes all data, travel, prep, studies, unlimited meetings to support the port and airport in its endeavors chasing down air service. What one new airline will bring, like we said before, it's going to be bringing in revenue across all airport income streams, local job creation, tourism boosts, and long-term economic multipliers will go into place once we have additional air service, more employees, more businesses. It just enhances everything across the board for us. So how we're going to engage with this agreement and how we're going to execute this agreement is you have 6 of these here, 6 bullet points. So strategic relationships matter, right? So building trust with the airline network planners, this is a foundational piece of securing new service, so we have to stay on top of it, right? So once we start engaging with these airlines and we meet them at the conferences, we build rapport, we share data, we see what they need, we see what we need. We see what is going to be feasible for their network and planners to fill those gaps that we see. We have to keep up on that data, and we have to keep engaging those conversations with those airlines. It goes into my second one of timely delivery of the data. So no delay there. We don't want to wait even 2-3 weeks unless we're waiting for that data to be present or populated. So we're going to have to be very aggressive when in response to a request from an airline for whatever data that they do request, that we have to stay on top of that. And engaging them at their own, on their own turf, so not just the conferences, but headquarter meetings as well. So having us go out there, engaging with them, having conversations with their network and planners, and then also having, building a strong business cases for those markets. And then supporting the route proposal. So every pitch, must be backed by a catchment analysis, revenue potential, and strategic fit. We have to, the airlines, they really care about their bottom line. They got to see if what markets are going to be the best fit at what airports and how that ties back into their overall network and planning. So again, this has to do a lot with just the communication back and forth with these network planners. The port collaboration is a strength, so we have a very strong director team and other support from other divisions. Everybody here at the port, including myself, wants to see the airport succeed, and I know that the community really wants additional air service, so that's what we're focused on and we're going to tackle and execute and conquer. So with these efforts, we have Tyler, myself, we have real estate, we have all these support, this whole support team that can help this air service grow when that time comes of when we're engaging on a serious level with airlines. And then commitment to success, the airport's leadership is fully engaged. We all want to see long-term air growth. We want to be able to get that budget, back into the black, out of the red, be the airport that the community wants and deserves, and begin serving those markets that are underserved or unserved. And I'll leave it to the commissioners for any questions that you have.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yeah, that in-depth report. Thank you. It explains everything really well, why we should do this or shouldn't do this. And I appreciate the in-depth explanation and the time you took to put this together, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Shepard?
Yeah, we've been talking about, in addition to route service development, business development at the airport. Does Jack and his team provide any consulting services that get to some of those questions about what is the business development opportunities, both inside and outside the fence, for our coming expansions and opportunities?
I believe, I won't speak for Jack, but I believe his team is more focused on the commercial air service side, but they all correlate one way or another. The commercial service and the business development and how those support structures and facilities help and aid commercial service. But we do have Jack on the line, and if he wants to take a stab at that question.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Matt. Actually, we do quite a bit of strategic business planning. We don't go out and recruit businesses to lease land on the airport beyond airlines. What we do is a lot of analysis on what kind of businesses would fit, on where the opportunities are based on what community priorities are, and based on the physical plant that we have. In this agreement, we include 6 visits to the community over the course of the agreement. So we could absolutely repurpose time in those visits to do business analysis and help Matt and the team at the airport if that's what's needed. That will be included in the scope.
For me, it would be interesting to hear, I think we think about the business development is sometimes those companies that we don't know about that are making EV airplanes, or the startups and things of the future. There may also be things like other repair, service, cleaning, washing planes, and any of those type of fleet maintenance opportunities that exist out there, along with, what are some of those other manufacturing possibilities that are supplying the components and parts for the aviation industry that we could prioritize access to an international airport for making the business case more attractive to them. And so I think it would be really valuable for us to engage with some of that expertise that you guys have.
I completely agree, and we can definitely do that, Commissioner.
Okay. While I have you, tell me about the Canadian travelers and the impact that we're seeing and what we may see. We are certainly tracking this at our land crossings, and we are seeing lots of impacts throughout Whatcom County businesses and throughout other parts of the country. I've been seeing reports of Canadian airlines changing their route service to U.S. destinations. They're just flying right over us to Mexico and other spots. What is the local impact that you're seeing here now and into the future?
Yeah, happy to talk about that. It's not a great story. It's a better story in Bellingham than in other border markets. What we've seen is While our Canadian traffic has declined significantly, we've been able to backfill with travelers from primarily Whatcom County. So the impact to our air service has not been as severe. I was just looking at our October scheduled seats will be up about 15% over last year. So we actually, in terms of passengers using our airport, we're up, but the number of Canadian travelers is down, as I said, again, very significantly. On the East Coast, we've seen huge impacts. Allegiant has pulled back a ton of capacity from its East Coast markets. Bellingham is an exception to that rule. I am optimistic about the demand in Whatcom County itself. That piece has been a really good story because we're seeing just how much capacity Whatcom County passengers can absorb on their own. But in terms of when that Canadian traffic is coming back, it doesn't, I'm not optimistic that will be anytime soon. That is going to make our recruitment a bit more challenging, but it underscores why our international recruitment is so important to better compete with Seattle primarily. And it also underscores that we've got to be completely engaged with Allegiant in Alaska in order to ensure, one, our planes are full, and two, that they understand the Whatcom County market can support more capacity than we have right now. So that's kind of what I'm focused on today.
That's actually a decent spin on that question. I think it speaks to how important that asset is to our direct community, and that if we can continue to engage and provide service, that there's be some benefits there.
Do you have a number to go with that drop in Canadian traffic at our airport?
I don't, because part of the scope of our agreement is to redo all of those studies. So we have not pulled all of that data. I know overall Canadian demand this summer is down in the neighborhood of 20 to 25% over where it was last summer.
And Commissioner, it's not the answer, an accurate answer to your question, but when we pull license plates off of vehicles and take inventory in the parking lots, those numbers have flip-flopped since last year. So typically we see about anywhere between 60 to 70% Canadian plates in the parking lots. Right now we're seeing about 30%.
Yeah, well, that tracks somewhat with border lane crossings that we're seeing as well. Okay. Thanks, Jack. I've enjoyed working with you in the past. I think you know our facility well. You know its challenges and opportunities both, and it remains a high priority for us to get this facility operational for the community as in the best way we can, and that a long-term dream of international service with a new FIS station and that increased ability for larger commercial international flights is, I think, remains one of our most significant growth opportunities.
So, Jack, first of all, thank you. I've been to many meetings with you, and there's just nobody that knows this business quite the way you do. I think the most surprising thing to come out of this discussion today is the fact that you take a picture of my license plate, so I'm not getting out of town anonymously like I thought I was. But my question is a business related. Previous contracts have been a la carte, and we've spent about $26,000. Do you have a number that shows us how much we spent for these a la carte services with that as a backdrop? So if we spent 26, this full in is about 66 a year. So how much has Bellingham International Airport spent with this service a la carte on an annual basis? Is that number off the top of your head, or do we?
It's not off the top of my head, but there was other factors into that as well. I know Jack and his team, they receive a percentage based off of what they bring in as far as markets are concerned. And I'll let Jack speak to that for a little bit.
Well, yeah, so in our past agreement, it varied wildly by year because it was mostly incentive-based. So there were years where we made over $120,000 in the Bellingham market through our incentives. We made $30,000 per new route, and we had 1 year where we had 4 and 1 year where we had 3. So what we've done with this is lock the cost while better engaging on a continual basis. When we've been working essentially, you know, on a per project basis, is we're not focused on Bellingham until we get a phone call and the airport director says, hey, I need you to do X, Y, and Z. This agreement with monthly check-ins, monthly data reporting, and large data pulls every single year means that we're going to be looking at it pretty much on a weekly basis where we weren't before. So two things: it brings cost certainty, so you don't have a year where you pay us $120,000. But for us, it keeps us engaged and more up to date, which takes less of our time to get up to date when we're called, you know, after a 6-month lapse without having done any work.
You might find this hard to believe, but I tend to like incentive-based because if you're bringing new business in, then it is paying for itself, right? And I do think the motivation is there with an incentive-based program where it may not necessarily be there with a flat fee contract. Just, it's the reason commissions exist, right? So from that standpoint, but I would like to have, if I could, just some background on this tomorrow, the next day, or whatever, just to see how it was utilized in the past. I do believe we underutilized your service. There's no question that there's a lot of information that you have in your head or in data spreadsheets that we don't have access to or haven't asked for. And a lot of that is because the airport has been somewhat remote from general operations. So that I view this structure as being beneficial because I think it's going to tie the commission in a little bit better to airport operations. So I'm not arguing against that. I would just like to have some kind of reference to what the a la carte and what other directors have used in the past. I see all of the studies as being beneficial, but just a little bit of background on that if you're going to change the structure of the agreement. That being said, I don't have a problem with this contract whatsoever. So, and I have watched you in action, and you are brilliant. I have seen you talk to people off the top of your head about markets and routes, and it's like a big chessboard in your head, and you're very good at moving pieces around the board. So, that being said,
Very kind of you.
you earned it.
Motion to authorize the interim executive director to execute a 3-year contract with Volair Aviation Incorporated for air service development services with 2 optional 12-month extensions.
Commissioner Briscoe,
Yes.
Commissioner Shepard,
Also, yes.
Commissioner Bell is a yes. I'm going to ask the commission if anybody needs to take a break. If not, we're going to power forward.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Score.
Let's do one more presentation and then take a 5-minute.
Okay. First question I have, go ahead.
Motion to amend the port's 2025 capital budget, transferring funds to create a new project.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Harbor Master Blaine Harbor, Andy Peterson, thank you for having me this evening. I'm here to request transfer of funds for the consultant support with the Port of Bellingham's application for a boatyard general permit at Blaine Harbor. And this scope would include technical documents to help us guide our best management practices, stormwater pollution plan, as well as development of our wash water filter system for the pressure washing.
Commissioner Shepard?
There's no presentation. We're
There's no
just going over the
presentation.
action memo.
No presentation.
I read it, so I'm good.
I read it too, so.
Commissioner Briscoe, do you have anything?
If I can get this along. Yeah, and this gets our boatyard up and for an explanation of what it is. It gets our boatyard up and running up there so that our local folks can get some maintenance done and get some revenue generated and get us back in business here, I hope. So thank you, Andy.
You're welcome.
I have one last question.
Yes.
Do you intend to take Charlotte to Silky Scoop? Or do you intend to go to Mallards? Because having to sit through this is enough of a torture that I think a reward is warranted.
She got to ride in the Lightning, but I'll take her to ice cream on the way back.
Silky Scoop will still be open. I told you I was going to work for you, Charlotte.
I see a smile on her face.
I did my job. That's all I got.
Motion to amend the Port's 2025 capital budget transferring funds to create a new project.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Shepard?
Yes.
Commissioner Bell is a yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
They're both still open. All right, Commissioner Shepard, Commissioner Briscoe, we're going to take about a 10-minute break. We will reconvene here at 10 minutes to 6. Commissioner Briscoe, are you back? Can I take that? Okay, we are going to reconvene the commission meeting for Tuesday, August 12th, 2025, where we left off. Motion number 3.
Motion to amend the Port's 2025 capital budget, transferring funds to create a new project.
Terry.
Thank you, Tracy. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Terry Leahy, Property Manager. What we are requesting here is to transfer funds out of a current capital project, which is to do some site prep and create a new small building for one of our tenants in Fairhaven, Post Point Seafood, and take those funds and create a new capital project to demolition Warehouse 9, which is on approximately the same site. We have found another location for our current tenant, and they can move into that one without us having to build a new facility. Questions?
Commissioner Shepard?
I don't have any questions, thank you.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Go, Terry. Glad we're going to get it done. Thank you.
That's all.
That was unexpected.
That's all that you need there.
Motion to
Bobby
amend
woke
the
up.
Port's 2025 capital budget, transferring funds to create a new project.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
As if there's any doubt. Commissioner Shepard?
Also, yes.
And Commissioner Bell is a yes as well.
Thank you.
Number 4.
Motion to approve a renewal and modification of lease between the Port of Bellingham and Innovative Property Design LLC for property located at 215 Marine Drive, Blaine, Washington.
Thank you. This is a land lease in Blaine. The tenant has been there since 2013. This is Camway. I know it's under Innovative Property Design, but it's Camway Trucking. Currently owns the building. And this is a renewal that's already included in the lease. There are no changes other than we're renegotiating the rent.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Terry, you're on a roll. I'm good.
Thank you.
Commissioner Shepard?
Yeah, my question is, why so many why so many 5-year extensions? I see 9 5-year extensions. That's a lot of extensions. Is this a product of an old lease or?
Correct.
But what's the rationale? Why do we want to do that?
This was an original 1993 lease that's been modified over the years. It was originally a 20-year lease with, I believe, 7 renewals, and then a few more were added over the years to the maximum the port can do. I wasn't here when the original lease was done, so I can't speak to that.
And why would additional extensions have been added? Are they meeting certain performance criteria that we're looking for, and we're rewarding that with more extensions? I'm just trying to understand this one more.
In 2013, the previous tenant, which was Exports Inc., they sold the building. It was in pretty poor shape, and Camway Innovative Property Design took over the building, and they had requested a few more renewals. At that point, the Port Commission agreed to that, adding those renewals to the lease. In exchange for, they did revamp the building completely.
Okay, so they invested in the property.
Considerably.
And they have since gotten extensions.
Yes.
This agreement here doesn't add any additional extensions, but we are still looking at, a total 65-year lease here.
Correct.
Okay.
Do you really want my opinion?
Yes, sir.
These old leases drive me nuts.
It seems they were all mostly the same era.
Drive me nuts. But I have seen the Camway building, and I have seen the investment that was put into the property. It was substantial. And they have brought that building up and they have provided jobs. I don't see this, the number of jobs being maintained with this sublease. Do you have any numbers on that?
I do not. All I can say is the building is currently up for sale. Camware are moving their headquarters, so they were full in the building with their staff and a couple of small subtenants in there. However, right now, they're pretty much down to the bare bones, and it is being actively listed.
And so, again, we're going to be faced with a long-term 65 years of lease with a building not being utilized in its original form with the original amount of employment and sublet. And do you know what he's asking for the building?
About 2.4, 2.5.
It's a great spot. If you were a port, let's say, that would be a great spot. If you were a port that had money. But I don't know any of those.
So,
It gives me heartburn.
so if there is a sale or transfer of business or sublease, that would be under our purview to
Yes.
look at and approve.
Yes, chances are the building will be sold to a new tenant that then we or the Port Commission would need to decide to assign the lease on to the new user, whatever it may be.
What are the odds this is the purchaser of the building? Is that a high likelihood?
The
5-year lease, sublease?
There is no sublease in here. This is just renewing the lease for 5 years per the underlying term. So if the building were to sell, then the commission would have the opportunity to review that assignment of lease, which would go to a new tenant.
And at that point, is that one of those decisions where we have the decision but don't really have any authority to vote no?
That would be it, Michael. I was just going to bring that up.
It's one of those, like, you get to have your say, but you'll get sued if you really have your
You
say.
get to have awareness that it's happening.
The only way you can get out of this lease is to buy the building.
Okay. Well,
So if you stop and think about it, that might be the way to do it because it's cheaper than getting sued.
Frisco's on to something here, I think. Okay.
This is an automatic renewal for 5 years, and the subsequent ones are also automatic.
I wouldn't say they're automatic. They do need to come forward to the Port Commission, so they don't automatically renew, but they do have the right to renew, correct?
And we would have to have cause not to.
Correct.
Therefore, they're semi-automatic. Not fully automatic.
These are the things that have me going back and looking up the names of the commissioners to say, who in the heck voted for this, right? I don't like it.
Commissioners, we'll keep track on the sale of the building and do a little bit more digging on that and let you know what the real estate department finds.
And if I say no, we wind up in court, right?
And what kind of demand do we have for, if we were to own this building, what kind of demand do we see for its occupancy? Is this, it's currently being used, in the past it's been used for logistics?
Currently, well, with the current tenant, yes. For their staff, for the most part, they had a couple of small subtenants in there. Prior to that, it was basically a couple of boat sales people in there. A dentist was in there. Over years, I believe there was also a college in there, but that was a long, long time ago. So there have been multiple different users. It's been under-occupied until the current tenant used it for their own staffing needs.
That was diplomatic. And nothing screams maritime like dentistry.
And so we're talking mostly office building, not a warehouse, not a light industrial facility, so.
It's office, yes.
Yeah, those are harder.
I will reiterate, they did put a fair amount of money into this building when they did remodel it. It needed it.
No doubt.
And it is 5 years, and they will sell it sometime in the next 5 years.
I would anticipate so, yes.
prime
Harry, that
location.
price you threw out there, was that a ballpark, or is that what they're asking?
No, that's what they're asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be one thing if it was a light industrial building that we could put to productive use in quick manner. Office space is, it's just harder to work with. It's not our expertise in the same way.
And Blaine's difficult.
And Blaine's just a challenge for that market.
And especially when you look forward 65 years from now, office building is going to be even more of a challenge. So repurposing that building would be of utmost importance.
It really is a fantastic location. I think we can all agree to that. I mean, you're right
can.
on the
But
marina.
we can't
And
do anything
dare I
about
throw
it.
this out, I think we should be taking into consideration, I'm looking at economic development and Dan Tucker for potentially a Maris opportunity. So it would be worth taking a look at that and doing having some discussions around that.
And if we could find a use for that, I think it would be well worth the port's effort to repurpose that building. Dan?
So, correct me if I'm wrong, Terry, didn't we own that? Didn't the port own that building at one time?
That is correct, Commissioner.
I thought so.
You might not have been able to see him smirking, but.
A bit of history on it. We did sell the building. I took some quick notes here. In 1995 for about $600,000. And then when Camway purchased the building in 2013, they purchased it for $212,000. And this is after a tenant in 1995 put about $1 million into it at that point.
What was that movie with Shelley Long with that old house where the Money Pit? That's the one.
All right, well, I think we've probably.
Any more discussion on this
I
item?
don't have any more discussion
Okay.
on this one.
Motion to approve a renewal and modification of lease between the Port of Bellingham and Innovative Property Design LLC for property located at 215 Marine Drive, Blaine, Washington.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd?
Also, yes.
Commissioner Bell is also a yes.
Thank you.
Reluctantly.
I have a question to my fellow commissioners. Should we give some direction to look into that building and if we could make it work, if it was bought, if there was, could it pay for itself for us? I mean, is that something we're interested in? It is waterfront.
How about direction that any lease that may come up that was signed during that era, we take a look at sooner
Well,
rather than
You
later?
can look all you want, but you can't vote no.
Yeah. If the commission would like, could be something that we can bring up during the budget discussion process and look more into this, if you're interested in us doing that.
Yeah, I don't see it rising to the level of
Okay.
priority.
Yeah.
Okay.
It just sucks.
It seems like a stretch to make it. I think our capital is probably best served elsewhere.
Okay.
Motion to approve a new lease with Rivian LLC for property in the Waterfront District, Bellingham, Washington.
Oh, this is the one I was looking at.
Hi, Commissioners. I'm Elliot Smith, your Director of Real Estate. Being able to sometimes read the room, I've brought you a short-term lease.
Yeah.
I have a few short slides. I realize we've had a long evening tonight, but I first want to introduce Zach Whitney from Rivian. Zach came and presented to, I think, the directors and commission in 2024. And we've taken some time to develop a careful agreement for a Rivian Adventure Network 8 charging stations down at the waterfront. Rivian, I'd have to compliment them, was extremely careful when they saw the volume of great environmental work that our teams have done since the paper mill closed. I think that maybe gave them pause to say, why are there 26,000 pages here? But we've worked through that, found a good location for a charging station. I just have a few quick slides here. This is a 5-year initial term with a 5-year renewal. There's a base rent of $800 per month with a $100 per charger per month. A base rent adjustment comes 15% on the first day of the renewal term. The use is the construction, installation, operation, maintenance, and repair of up to 8 level 3 chargers. Those are our fast chargers. One of the things that we dealt with quite carefully, as we've heard from the public, is there has been a small deficit of parking at the waterfront. So we were looking at the way to displace the fewest number of parking spots from our existing gravel lot across from the Harcourt development and the granary. And the port is working towards adding to that, roughly doubling the size of that parking area. So this will take somewhere between 8 and 10 spots from the existing lot, but of course, add the ability to fast charge for all electric vehicle types there. Rivian is building out their network throughout the U.S. This is a quick shot of where they connect from further south and the coast, taking them up towards the Canadian border. I believe there are a few planned stations on Vancouver Island and in the lower mainland of BC as well. We would connect to that network. And I just want to point out something. Again, the port team and the City of Bellingham have been working quite hard to add a number of slower level 2 charging stations. We have a new one right outside in the parking lot here. There's another one over next to the pavilion. Those are very well used at the moment. And I think it's great that we're plugging those in. There's a small difference. In this slide, you'll see up by I-5, the only existing fast chargers there are right along I-5. Those are meant for people on long trips. You get off an exit, you charge up for a half hour or an hour, and you get back on the highway and leave. These will be the first fast chargers down here at the waterfront, if approved by commission. And they are meant to come straight down to the waterfront. Sorry, I've bumped my slides again here. Straight down to the waterfront. The location is not an accident. When Rivian approached us about a year ago, they absolutely wanted to be down at the waterfront, near the pump track, near the digesters, and near the water. They're looking for a location. I tried really hard to get them to go to the airport, to get them to go to Blaine. I had all kinds of great suggestions, but this was where they had their heart set on, and it fits with their network. So I think a great addition there. This gives you a little bit of an idea what those chargers will look like. Rivian has another, the next south station is at Linwood. I believe the equipment will be similar to that. And again, this is not only for Rivian vehicles. Other electric vehicles are able to charge at them as well. Again, a view of approximately what these look like installed, so you can imagine them near the Harcourt lot. In addition to the power pedestals themselves, there is a small amount of other equipment that goes into an existing connection and the new road built on Laurel. So there's very little, granary. There's very little above ground infrastructure, and that's back closer to the sidewalk and other, sort of roadway hardware. I think that was the end of my presentation. We do have Zach here to answer any questions that you have about this. Yeah.
I'm happy to come to the mic or up there, whatever you prefer.
Sure, come on up.
Commissioner Shepard?
Tell us a little bit about how users interface. Can people just plug and play with a credit card? Do you have to have the app? And then just reiterate for us that it's a open network. You know, I think people have seen and experienced Tesla chargers, and for those people who have EVs, the frustration with getting to places that aren't compatible because Tesla's proprietary network. Walk us through how this is different.
Yeah, sure. So the Rivian Adventure Network started in about 2021. Initially, we were a closed network to just Rivian vehicles. That has changed this year. So right now, we're in a process of retrofitting all of our existing sites. That's almost complete, actually. So over 120 of our sites nationwide are now open to all electric vehicles. If you own a Rivian, as Elliot does, he knows very well.
Serendipity, honest. Polygraphs are available.
Yep. If you own a Rivian, you just plug in and you charge natively. So your account is linked through your vehicle, and your vehicle knows when you're charging, how much you take, how much you owe. So it's very seamless from that perspective. Our goal is to make it just as seamless from a non-Rivian perspective. There is a credit card interface on the posts that we install. Again, it's very simple. You plug in, there's no app you need. Plug in, tap, or insert your card, and then the charging starts. So it's designed to be as user-friendly as possible. And then sorry, can you repeat your first question?
Oh, I think it was, is there an app for you said it's just with credit card? There's
just credit card. You don't need
not
an app to pay or anything like that. Yeah.
Okay. And then people know about it because it's on PlugShare, it's loaded into Google when you're searching for available EV chargers in the region.
Exactly, yeah. Okay. So it's in your vehicle. When you pull, a lot of EVs, they'll have, the option to pull up charging stations when you're driving through an area.
Yeah.
And so this will come up as a charging station that you can stop at. And then also when you're routing from point A to point B, it'll suggest kind of different stops that you need to make to charge to make it to your destination. So that'll pop up as well in the vehicle interface.
Okay. And are these 350 kilowatt chargers?
Yes, they are.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Any other questions? I assume you guys kind of like the location, the mountain bike culture, the tune-up festival, the active culture that, around that area. So I'm glad that you guys noticed, and we certainly need more of this high-speed charging in the region.
Yeah, it's a seamless fit for our brand, one, and for EV users in general who maybe don't want to just stop at Fred Meyer on I-5 and sit there for 30 minutes. They want to engage really in the community, which, I'm from Seattle, live down there, love Bellingham. So it's a really special place to be able to get people to interact with. And this is just getting them a little further off I-5 and into this area. So I think it's a great option.
Well, I think there's a real kind of business opportunity for infrastructure around charging facilities that's going to keep growing. When people charge, they want to go do something for their 30 minutes or 45 minutes that they have, where they want to patronize like local businesses at the granary or other places around that area. So I think our regional businesses that are in close proximity will have some benefit for this kind of infrastructure.
Yeah, I agree. That's all factored in when we're searching for new locations. Yeah. So definitely meets all of our expectations from a amenity perspective.
Okay.
Commissioner Briscoe?
No question.
What a cool job you have.
It's been fun.
When you look back on this will be one of the best times of your life. Trust me.
I hope so.
Love the idea of what you do. So can you I'm looking at the aerial. Can you kind of drop a pin on a Google map or something and show me where these are going to sit?
I need to figure out how to get back into the,
What I'm wondering now is what the impact is going to be to the overall site, access, egress, as we build this out. What's the impact?
Yeah, so I can speak to that a little bit if you
Yeah, I
want.
just want to be able to visualize it.
8 spots almost directly, approximately directly across from the entrance into the Harcourt parking garage. So you would,
So building, the first building, Building A.
thank you very much.
So how did that relate to where the other chargers are?
So I don't think we're going to be able to, on this map, zoom.
No, I've got
In-
an
into-
overhead, so that's okay. Just
Yeah,
So just across from the park?
yeah,
Yeah, okay. So it's far enough back, it's the vacant field behind, and then it's on the other side of the road from the condos,
that's correct.
where the parking lots are, right?
That's correct, yeah.
And it's going to sit on the east side of the parking lot?
It'll be on the south side of
Yeah.
the parking lot, so directly adjacent to where the pump track starts.
So you'll be closer in to where the pump track is?
Correct. Yes.
So if you click into our agenda, which I'm not able to do here at the moment, you'll find the lease with a single line drawing that shows the,
Yeah, I got it.
shows the sketch.
Yeah, I think Exhibit A in the lease has our site plan currently. So far south end of that parking lot, there's a trailer compatible stall as well on the western side of the parking lot. So as you pull in,
Got it.
we've made sure that all of the kind of two-way driveway clearances are maintained through there. So there's pretty big abundance of space for us to be able to have that kind of trailer ingress and egress.
And so this is 5-year with a 5-year renewal
That's correct.
on that location? Yeah, the only concern I would have is, given where it is extending into the site, as we go through the planning for that area, there may be a relocation at some point down the road.
And that was something we considered heavily while we discussed this. The area will take some time to grow. This is not one of the areas that's designated for an early redevelopment.
Currently. If it were my time frame, it would be much sooner. Just saying.
Okay, fair enough. I do have a long-term lease we could put in place in that area if you'd like. I think I'm funny, so. But yeah, that's been considered in the planning, and it may be that after the first 5-year term or the second 5-year term, we decide this should stay there longer, and it may be at that point that we need to discuss moving it to a slightly different location as their next generation of hardware gets rolled out.
My concern here is the same as it was with the airport small lots, is that we're going to do a master planning around this entire area, and anything that infringes on that is going to prohibit us from making certain moves that we may need to make. And this is one of those things that might, right, as I look at it. It may not.
I think there's a very tiny chance of that in this small footprint in this location.
I want you there, trust me. I also want your job.
Isn't it right next to the sidewalk, basically?
No, it's more towards the center.
It's a couple rows in, yeah.
It's on the very south end of that parking lot, so it's away from the street, about as far as you can get in that parking lot.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that's my big concern, is that we're not done with that process. We just got the property back. To put something in that's long-term in an area like that might.
I hear your concern, but the vast majority of the space out there that we have to plan with is more logical to do the next steps on. Yes, we will continue to do the planning. I think we have a visioning session scheduled coming up. And there's always always the possibility that if something huge comes up that we really want to work out, well, maybe that building should have Rivian chargers in it or adjacent to it, so.
Yeah, and I'm just one commissioner, but I've got a whole different vision for how this is going to happen. So it's very different for me thinking about this, but we have not had a chance to discuss it.
Yeah.
So my big concern is just that, is what if we do something down the road? Are we prepared to accommodate them under that?
Move or somehow adjust the lease.
Yeah,
We hear what you're saying on the planning sessions and not getting things in there that might impede that
Yeah,
before we've had those sessions.
which we're doing now.
I don't see us going at breakneck speed there anywhere. We can't even seem to get the other building that's supposed to be underway organized. So I don't, if it's ifs and buts for Canyon, that's gonna be Christmas all year long. So if we what if all evening here, we're gonna be here at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, I'm not trying to what if it, and I'm trying not to be here till 9 o'clock, but I am saying that we did not have we have a new crack at the can, and we have a different visioning process that I think we need to go through.
Noted.
I'm done with my comments, so we can go.
Motion to approve a new lease with Rivian LLC for property in the Waterfront District, Bellingham, Washington.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Shepard?
Also, yes.
And I'm a yes, but
We hear you.
do you? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Zach.
Okay, now we'll go to other business. Actually, before anybody leaves, if you've got a comment to the commissioner, I would love to hear it. Anybody in the audience that wishes to speak before the commission on any subject whatsoever, you've got about 3 minutes. Anybody online? No. Okay, other business? Commissioner Briscoe?
No, can't get the button unmuted.
Commissioner Shepard?
I wanted to highlight that the Mural Festival is happening this weekend down at the waterfront. I haven't seen them in person, but I've seen the photos of the murals that have gone up recently from last year's winners of the Mural Festival, and they're really eye-catching and popping. And so I'm excited for this year's installment of Noisy Waters and continue to appreciate the collaboration we have with Paper Whale and folks who are just continue to bring lots of art, creativity, and investment in the community. That's it for me.
And I second that it's truly my favorite waterfront activity is the Noisy Waters Mural Fest. It's incredible artwork to be seen down there. And what a great use of port property. No, and I'm just going to, for other business, I just want to make sure that we are going to go through some major planning and discussions with commission. I think going through this process of executive director changes and some internal changes, the more time we get to talk to each other about what our ideas are, the better. And I'm feeling that drive more than ever. Both, not just piece by piece, and it's nothing against staff, it's just I think the commission, at least me for one, believes that there's just a lot of information that we didn't get, we haven't talked through. Information was siloed, didn't necessarily make it through to all of us. I would like to have some commissioner discussions at length about waterfront and airport and where those things are going. That's all. Nothing else, meeting adjourned.